Chapter 1022. This? What the hell is this? The middle-aged man yelled in horror. He had seen Zhu Kei's appearance. Although she couldn't be said to be glamorous, she was also a beautiful woman. How could she be like this nowadays? She was uglier than the beggar on the street. The woman covered her face hurriedly, screamed in horror and murmured, "It's not me, it's not me. It's the bitch Nailin Heshi who framed me. It's she who harmed me." Nailin Heshi? This name made both Feng Yunjing and the middle-aged man puzzled. At this time, the woman had once again rushed toward Feng Yunjing, saying in tears, "Young Master Feng, you must believe me, I really am Zhu Kei, and my master is Elder Cheng from the Doctors Association. I will become like this because I was framed by that slut. And my master is also controlled by that slut. Young Master Feng, please trust me." As soon as the woman rushed over, Feng Yunjing smelled an unpleasant odor. His eyes were full of disgust, and he kicked away the woman. Unexpectedly, the hair of the woman fell off during the pulling. A black and uneven scalp and the woman's old and ugly face were also revealed to them. People passing by accidentally saw it, and they couldn't help but let out an exclamation, "Ghost!" Feng Yunjing also felt his stomach tumbling, almost vomiting on the spot. The movement here finally alarmed Iron Kirin soldiers that were patrolling around. One of the Iron Kirin teams was about to come here to check the situation. The middle-aged man frowned and quickly said, "Young master, this woman knows Elder Cheng. Maybe she really is Zhu Quebec. We might as well take her away first so we can ask questions." Feng Yunjing pondered for a moment and nodded, then he stretched out his hand and waved lightly. A transparent shield covered all three of them. In the blink of an eye, the three people disappeared in place. In a remote mansion in Yanjing City, Feng Yunjing and the middle-aged man slowly appeared. There was also the ugly ghost-like woman. As soon as the woman was thrown to the ground by Feng Yunjing, she immediately knelt on the ground, begging and crying, "Thank you, young Master Feng, for saving my life. Young Master Feng, please save my master too." "Your master?" Feng Yunjing narrowed his eyes and said coldly, "You mean Nangong Yu?" "Yes. The King of Hell Nangong Yu is my master. What do you mean by asking me to save him? What happened to Nangong Yu?" The ugly woman raised her head abruptly. She said with her eyes sparkling, "Master? Master is controlled by the slut. Yes, it must be so. It's all because of that slut that the master's temperament has changed drastically. It's completely different from before. He even abolished my spiritual root and put me into the spirit sealing prison. I somehow managed to escape." The centipede scar on her face trembled as she said. Her eyes were full of resentment and hatred. "Abolish spiritual root?" The middle-aged man couldn't help but whisper, No wonder you become like this? So, you really are Zhu Kei?" The woman raised her head, looked carefully at the middle-aged man for a long while, and suddenly said in a hoarse voice, "Your Hall Master Zheng of the Feng family, I used to take medicine from you." The middle-aged man's eyes flashed, then he nodded at Feng Yunjing, "Young master, it seems that she is really Zhu Quebec. It's just Zhu Kei, you? How did you become the way you are now?" Chapter 1023. Is it she you? I just said it. It's because of that slut. Zhu Kei suddenly screamed hysterically. It was that slut who caused me to be locked in the damn place like spirit sealing prison. I was suffering so much, but I couldn't die. I can't wait to peel her skin, detach her muscle tendon, eat her meat. The bitch bewitches my master to treat me like that. She will definitely not end well. Zhu Kei had escaped from King of Hell Mansion for 10 days, but remembering the days in spirit sealing prison, she felt like falling into the abyss of hell. Every day in the spirit sealing prison was extremely torturing. Especially when she saw the reflection of her face in the water, she wanted to tear Heshi into pieces. But at that time, she still had a glimmer of hope. Zhu Kei always felt that the master was just being controlled by the slut, and lost his heart. When he woke up, he would know that she was the one who was good for him, and he would definitely let her go out. However, she had been tormented in the spirit sealing prison for so long, but what she finally got was not Nangong Yu's wake up, but the Zhu Kei mark on her body disappeared without a trace. The disappearance of Zhu Kei's mark meant that someone had taken her place. It meant that King of Hell Mansion and Nangong Yu completely erased her existence. Zhu Kei was completely desperate in the spirit sealing prison, but at the same time, she was hysterically crazy. She was not reconciling to living like an inhuman in the spirit sealing prison, not reconciling to just dying like this. Even if I'm going to die, I must let the bitch who harmed me get retribution and get what she deserves. With that madness, Zhu Kei broke 2 of her meridians and escaped from the spirit sealing prison. She escaped from the spirit sealing prison originally intended to go to the Doctors Association to find her master, but after she left the King of Hell Mansion, she discovered that Iron Kirin had taken control of the entire Yanjing city. The bases and medicine halls of the Feng family and the Doctors Association originally stationed on the street were all cleaned up. If she wants to leave Yanjing City, she must be interrogated by the Iron Kirin. With her current appearance, it would definitely attract attention. She would even be recognized by Xian Wu at a glance. At this time, Zhu Kei was even more desperate to find that even if she escaped from the spirit sealing prison, she was still unable to escape. She could only watch her body aging day by day and dying day by day. When she was desperate, she suddenly saw Feng Yunjing on the street. Hall Master Jing didn't recognize her at a glance, but she had seen Feng Yunjing many times before. Coupled with Feng Yunjing's outstanding appearance, she naturally recognized him at a glance. When Zhu Kei saw Feng Yunjing, it was like seeing her only savior, so he rushed toward Feng Yunjing on the street desperately. Hall Master Zheng asked how Zhu Kei would become like this, but Zhu Kei's mind at this time was already a little confused. She just spoke incoherently and kept shouting, "It's that bitch who set me up, that bitch seduced my master and controlled my master." Hall Master Zheng remembered the rumors in Yanjing City, and he suddenly frowned. "Is the person you mentioned that harmed you, Shiyu?" Shiyu? That's right, it's Shiyu. Zhu Kei nodded first. Then she shook her head violently. "No, that slut is not called Shiyu. Shiyu is just her pseudonym. Her real name is not Shiyu. She is third miss from Nailin Mansion. She is the daughter of Nailin Jingze, Nailin Heshi." Chapter 1024. Tell us in detail, Nailin Heshi? Feng Yunjing and Hall Master Zheng couldn't help exclaiming. Feng Yunjing knew that Shiyu was a woman, but he did not expect that Shiyu's true identity turned out to be a miss of the Nailin family. Moreover, he heard that the Nailin family was exterminated a month ago. Now the entire mansion was empty like a haunted house. Could it be that Shiyu did all this? Hall Master Zheng was shocked that Shiyu, who had turned the entire Feng family upside down, and the amazing young man who amazed the world, turned out to be a woman. It's no wonder that Nangong Yu protects her so much and has such an ambiguous relationship with her. It seems that Nangong Yu has long known Shiyu's identity as a woman. Hall Master Zheng took a deep breath, suppressed the shock in his heart, and continued to ask Zhu Kei, "You said Shiyu controlled Nangong Yu. How did she do it? How do you prove it?" Zhu Kei bit her teeth, making a rattling sound as if thinking of something. The pair of eyes bulged up on her wrinkled face, looking extremely scary. If Master weren't controlled, how could Master treat such a powerless, ugly slut differently? If Master were not controlled, how could Master ignore his own illness in order to save her? Wait, sickness? Hall Master Zheng quickly grabbed a word. Nangong Yu got sick? What illness does he have? Zhu Kei opened her mouth slightly, trying to say something, but she soon closed his mouth tightly and remained silent. All of the 4 confidants had a blood pact with Nangong Yu. Even if she was no longer Zhu Kei and her cultivation was lost, the binding force of the blood pact still exists. As long as she dared to tell the secrets related to Nangong Yu, the blood pact would immediately backlash, killing her on the spot. Feng Yunjing was anxious in his heart. He wanted to know Nangong Yu's weakness right away. He gathered a sword aura in his hand and said fiercely, "Tell me or not. What illness does Nangong Yu have?" Listening to Zhu Kei's tone, Nangong Yu's illness should be very serious. This is equivalent to Nangong Yu's weakness. If I can grasp this weakness, I might be able to get rid of Nangong Yu. By then, isn't Shiyu mine? Zhu Kei was full of horror. She covered his mouth, shook her head desperately, and refused to say one more word. Hall Master Zheng seemed to have thought of something. He frowned slightly, stopped Feng Yunjing, and said coldly to Zhu Ke, "You tell us all the things that happened before and after Nangong you met Shiyu in detail." Seeing that she had escaped, she was overjoyed. In order to win the trust of Feng Yunjing, she didn't dare to conceal anything. She quickly told all the things she knew about Nalan Heshi, Shiyu and Nangong Yu. The bitch Nalan Heshi was a trash at the time. She didn't have any spiritual power, and her medical skills were just at the amateur level. She couldn't even refine pill. However, Master believed her more than me, and he even let this bitch treat him. No cultivation. Can't refine pill. Feng Yunjing and Hall Master Zheng looked at each other again in horror. If Shiyu really didn't have spiritual power at all and didn't know how to refine pill more than half a year ago, then according to her now well-known ability, how outstanding is this person's talent? What has she encountered that let her have such an achievement now? Chapter 1025. Death Penalty Speech Prohibition. Zhu Ke shook her head and said, I don't know. I only know that Master was in retreat, and he left suddenly. When he came back, he brought back Shiyu who was unconscious. I was a doctor, so I could feel that Shiyu was already facing death. If it weren't for Master to sacrifice himself to save her, how could this slut survive? How could it arouse the earth-shaking natural phenomenon? Arousing the earth-shaking natural phenomenon? What do you mean by that? Zhu Ke recalled the scene of that day, and she gritted her teeth and said viciously, in Yanjing City, everyone knows that Nalan Heshi is a waste that cannot cultivate, and her Dantian is a waste Dantian. But I don't know what the bitch seduced my master to do. After her injury healed, she was suddenly able to draw spirit into her body, and even when Zhu Ke was about to say the strange scene of a giant vortex sucking all the spiritual power and the evil sun in night, previously translated as demon day and night, her body suddenly twitched. What kind of natural phenomenon is it? Hall Master Zheng was anxious. He grabbed Zhu Ke by the collar and asked anxiously. Zhu Ke's face was full of pain. She kept scratching her neck, desperately trying to speak, but she couldn't say anything except for making a click sound. What's going on? Zhu Ke, what happened to you? Zhu Ke's face changed from red to white, then from white to green. She looked like a fish about to die of suffocation. She couldn't do anything except squirming her mouth and protruding her eyes. Feng Yunjing's expression changed slightly and said, she was cast with a speech prohibition art. The so-called speech prohibition art would only be triggered only when certain forbidden words were mentioned. Once the enchantment was triggered, those who wanted to tell the secret would be punished. There were several types of punishments. Some were minor punishments, which could be restored to normal after the pain. Some were the soul imprisonment of the fundamental essence. Once the prohibited words were spoken, one's soul would be irreversibly damaged. Of course, there was also the death penalty. Feng Yunjing shook his head indifferently. She was given a death penalty speech prohibition. She's gone. Hall Master Zheng released his hand with an annoyed look and threw Zhu Ke to the ground. He said with disgust, I thought saving this ugly monster can let us know more secrets about the king of Hell Mansion and Shiyu, but she can't help anything at all. Zhu Ke's body twitched after hearing the words. Her eyes were full of despair and resentment, but she couldn't say anything in the end. She died with blood coming out from her 7 orifices. Looking at Zhu Ke who was dead, Feng Yunjing frowned and muttered to herself, strange natural phenomenon, what phenomenon is it? He knew that a lot of things happened in Yanjing City during this time. The spiritual power vortex that rumored to appear in the evil sun in night, the earlier opening of the sealed dragon domain's secret territory, do these have anything to do with Shiyu? Hall Master Zheng frowned and said, in any case, there must be an ulterior secret in Nangong Yu and Shiyu. And this secret must have something to do with the best quality pill sold by Shengda Hall. Maybe, it's also related to the sealed dragon domain's secret territory. Feng Yunjing nodded, and he said coldly, it seems that, as we had expected, the new owner of sealed dragon domain's secret territory is likely to be Nangong Yu or Shiyu. Chapter 1026. Red clothes like fire. Feng Yunjing clenched his fists abruptly, and a hint of ruthlessness flashed in his eyes. Shiyu turns out to be Nalan Hashi, the well-known useless trash in Yanjing City. However, such a trash turned into a genius overnight and caused a natural phenomenon. What kind of secret is hidden in her body? I still remember that in breaking Spirit Mountain, Shiyu had the power to resist even under my hands. Her strength is even comparable to the Hall Master Zheng besides. But in just half a year, how did she progress from a waste person with no cultivation to a powerhouse who can fight with gold core stage? And what benefits did Nangong Yu get from this? If I can get Shiyu and know the secret of Shiyu's rapid advancement, can I be stronger than Nangong Yu? Will the elders in the clan also look at me differently? Hall Master Zheng suddenly said in a deep voice, "Young master, why don't we go to Nalan Mansion first? Maybe we can find any clues." Feng Yunjing nodded, then they quickly disposed of Zhu Kei's body and left the mansion in a flash. Young master, the Nalan Mansion is ahead. It is already empty now, and I heard that it is even haunted, so it hasn't been sold yet. Feng Yunjing listened to Hall Master Zheng's narration and nodded. They accelerated their pace and were about to enter the gate. Suddenly, Feng Yunjing's footsteps halted, and he retreated abruptly. The door of the Nalan Mansion was still empty. No one was there, but Feng Yunjing's face looked shocked and uncertain. His eyes were full of panic. Hall Master Zheng, who had been following Feng Yunjing, saw Feng Yunjing step back, so he gave him a hand. At this time, he could feel the slight tremor of Feng Yunjing's hand, and the fear and amazement that permeated his emotions. Hall Master Zheng looked at the door of Nalan Mansion, but there was nothing unusual at all. He couldn't help asking, "Young master, what's the matter?" Feng Yunjing opened her mouth, unable to speak for a while. "There is..." After finally uttering 2 words, his pupils suddenly shrank. The blood in his body seemed to freeze, and he could no longer move anymore. At this time, Hall Master Zheng also found something wrong. He stared straight into the direction of the Nalan Mansion's main entrance, only to see a figure slowly appearing there. The red clothes were like fire, and the hair was like a waterfall. The exquisite eyebrows were like the dazzling sun, which made people want to worship and confess their sins just by looking at them. It was a young man who could take away the breathing of those who saw him. His face was covered by black silk-like hair. The light and shadow disappeared, making him look elusive. However, he knew by just a glance that how peerless and fascinating the man's look was. When Hall Master Zheng met Nangong Yu for the first time before, he also admired that there was such an outstanding man in the world. Only that face could make all women in the world willing to die for him. No wonder the arrogant miss would fall for Nangong Yu faithfully for so many years. Chapter 1027. Surrender and Fear. But the face of the man in red clothes in front was comparable to Nangong Yu. The aura that seemed to radiate unintentionally from him was even more frightening than Nangong Yu. The man in red walked out of Nalan Mansion, and he slowly glanced at Feng Yunjing and Hall Master Zheng. At this moment, Feng Yunjing and Hall Master Zheng were all stunned, and sweats came out fro their foreheads. The man in red clothes smiled slightly, stretched out his finger, and gently drew one on his lips. That smile was really more dazzling than 100 flowers blooming, but in the eyes of Feng Yunjing and Hall Master Zheng, they seemed to see the evil from hell, making their knees tremble. Finally, they were unable to withstand the pressure and knelt on their knees. Speech Prohibition Art. Speech Prohibition Art. Feng Yunjing's eyes were full of panic, and all the humiliation, inferiority, and unwillingness in his mind all vanished, leaving only the surrender and fear in his mind. Just a few hours ago, they coldly watched Zhu Kei died of the speech prohibition art. Now they had been cast with the same speech prohibition art. Their life and death were completely controlled by others, but they couldn't raise any thoughts of resistance in his heart. The man in red did not look at them again after drawing one. He flicked his sleeve to draw a red arc in the air. Immediately afterward, Feng Yunjing felt a dazzling white light flashing in front of him, and he closed his eyes subconsciously. When he opened it again, he was horrified to find that the entire Nalan Mansion in front of him disappeared. That's right, it wasn't that it collapsed into ruins or it was blown into fly ash, but it disappeared completely. The figure of the man in red clothes had already risen into the sky and lightly jumped onto a snow-white airship. The airship was a little bigger than the flying sword, and it was all crystal clear, exuding a bitter chill. Feng Yunjing could still feel the bone-piercing chill standing far away from the spacecraft. It was even colder than the thousands of years-old ice. The man in red was standing on the white jade airship. His slender figure seemed to exude radiance, but he seemed to be affected by the piercing cold at all. Feng Yunjing opened his mouth with his body trembling, trying to say something. But in the blink of an eye, the white jade airship disappeared into the sky. The coldness and pressure all over his body suddenly disappeared. Feng Yunjing let out a sigh of relief. The sweat on his face was dripping down like rain. Hall Master Zheng even sat down on the ground and said tremblingly, "Young master, that man in red clothes who is he? How could he have such a terrifying cultivation? He actually raised the entire Nalan mansion. How high his cultivation is?" Before Hall Master Zheng finished speaking, his eyes suddenly widened, and the two eyeballs almost came out. He stretched out his hand in horror and choked his throat, making a click sound. His expression was extremely painful. It was full of despair and fear. However, his struggle lasted only a few seconds, and there was a loud bang in his throat. His entire head flew out and rolled on the ground a few times. Feng Yunjing was also stunned by the scene in front of him. He stared blankly at Hall Master Zheng's bloody head as well as those eyes that seemed to roll out, and he couldn't help shivering. Chapter 1028. The Real Intention, Speech Prohibition Art. What is forbidden is all the words about the man in red clothes. Even if it is not to other people, the communication between us will be punished by death. Who is this man in red clothes? Why did he come to Nalan Mansion? Feng Yunjing panted in horror for a long time in the same place, then he wiped the cold sweat from his head anxiously before hurriedly leaving the street where Nalan Mansion was located. Before finding Shiyu and returning to Xingda Hall, I must first tell the elders about the identity of Shiyu and Nalan Heshi, as well as Nangong Yu's illness, as well as the speech prohibition art cast upon me. I must think of a solution. As for Shiyu, no, Nalan Heshi, she will never escape from my hands. Never. The news that Nalan Mansion disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye quickly spread throughout the Miluo continent. A mere Nalan Mansion certainly couldn't attract everyone's attention, but the key was that the way Nalan Mansion disappeared was really weird. The Nalan Mansion seemed to have evaporated from the world. Not even a broken tile was left behind. Everything happened silently in the blink of an eye. Of course, the news quickly reached the Tiangang Kingdom. When Heshi got the news, the surprise and doubt in his mind were more than anyone else. Gu Lufeng knew Heshi's identity, so this matter naturally made people inquire in more detail. He frowned and said, "I asked Mei Rian to inquire about the news from many sources. No one in Yanjing City knew what happened to Nalan Mansion at that time. However, some people said that just before Nalan Mansion disappeared, they saw a white jade airship in the sky." Heshi stared at Nangongyu. Nangongyu retracted divine sense in the inscribed jade slip and nodded. "Wu Yu also sent news. Iron Kirin in Yanjing City also doesn't know what happened. There are also people who saw the white jade airship and a man in red clothes on it. However, he disappeared in a flash, so no one can confirm whether it was just an illusion." Man in red clothes? Heshi thought for a moment, but she couldn't think of anyone with such characteristics. She looked at Nangongyu, and Nangongyu also shook his head. "I can't guess who it is. It's just..." Nangongyu paused slightly with a dark glow in his eyes. "It is not difficult to razor Nalan Mansion to the ground, but it is difficult to make Nalan Mansion disappear in the blink of an eye without attracting anyone's attention. As far as I know, in the entire Miluo continent, no one can do this absolutely. Who will this man in red clothes be?" Gu Lufeng frowned and said, "Nalan Mansion is just a family that emerged more than 10 years ago and has no strong background. What's more, Nalan Mansion has long been exterminated. What is the purpose of this person appearing in Nalan Mansion?" Bai Hu also knocked on the table and said with a puzzled face, "That is to say, although Nalan Mansion is considered to be one of the 4 major families in the Jinling Kingdom, it is really nothing in the vast Miluo continent. Why would such a powerhouse bother with a mere Nalan Mansion, and it is even a dead Nalan mansion. It's really weird. When Bai Hu spoke halfway, his voice suddenly paused. He looked at Heshi with some caution, and he coughed. Could it be that this person is not interested in the Nalan mansion? But princess. Before Bai Hu spoke, Nangong Yu's fierce eyes swept over. He immediately shivered, made a silent gesture, and shut up. Chapter 1029. A series of questions. Nangong Yu saw Heshi's frown and the hidden worries in her gaze. He couldn't help but step forward, hugged her and said, "Sheer, don't think too much, no matter what that person wants to do, I won't let him hurt you." Heshi raised his head and glanced at Xiao Qi, who was aside. Then she looked back at Nangong Yu and said in a low voice, "Nangong Yu, do you think that person's purpose is my mother?" Even though she didn't even see the face of the man in red clothes, Heshi always had a trace of inexplicable anxiety in her heart. After she heard her master talk about Enlingyue, she was always worried that one day, those people who were looking for Enlingyue would look for her and Xiao Qi again. So now when she heard the news of the man in red clothes, she felt that this man came for Enlingyue. Nangong Yu's eyebrows jumped slightly, and his hands holding Heshi tightened again. He suddenly raised his head and made a gesture. Bai Hu and Qing Long immediately went out. Gu Lufeng also sensibly pulled Xiao Qi out. Nangong Yu lowered his head and said, "Sheer, are you sure that your mother Enlingyue is dead?" Heshi was stunned, then she tried to find the memory of the original owner. She frowned. "I don't know. Many things are too far away, I can't remember them clearly. But in my memory, my mother disappeared suddenly. I haven't seen her body, nor have I seen her buried." Nangong Yu's eyes narrowed slightly with a thoughtful look. Disappearance doesn't necessarily mean dead. As long as you don't see the corpse, she may still be alive. But even Mammy Chin kept saying that my mother was dead. Heshi was startled, then she shook her head again. And if mother hadn't died, how could Nalan Jingze believe it? I've been in contact with Nalan Jingze, he didn't doubt my mother's death at all. What's more, if my mother hadn't died, where would she be now? Why didn't she show up until now? Heshi's series of questions silenced the entire room. Nangong Yu sighed and said, "Forget it, no matter if Enlingyue is still alive or not, Shia, you should never mention her in front of anyone. As your master said, if Enlingyue really comes from the upper realm, then those who searched for her more than a decade ago were definitely not what we can fight against now." Heshi nodded, reached out, hugged Nangong Yu back and let out a sigh of relief. "You too, you must protect yourself." Nangong Yu smiled softly and dropped a kiss on her head, but in the blink of an eye, the smile on his face was replaced by contemplation. Is the man in red clothes from the upper realm? Who is he? What is his purpose? Next, Heshi stayed in Yangon City for a few days with a responsible attitude toward the patient to ensure that Zhuge Xiaotian's illness would not recur. After Xiao Qi completely absorbed the second piece of Divine Soul Jade, his spirit became better and he could say more and more words, which made Heshi very happy. When Heshi got up early this morning, Heshi did not see Little Egg and other little guys. At this moment, Emo Xiaodu came in with her mouth pouting. She said angrily, "Sister Shiyu, Little Egg, they are too bad. They didn't call me when they went to buy gifts. They said we will go out together in the morning. I will ignore them when they are back." Heshi saw her face with messy hair and sleepy eyes, and she couldn't help but sneer. "Did you oversleep, so they didn't wake you up and went out by themselves?" Chapter 1030. Something happened. Emo Xiaotu's body became stiff. She peeked at Xiao Qi, who was obediently learning to use chopsticks, and her cheeks blushed. She immediately ran away with her face covered. Oops, she was angry just now, but she forgot that she hadn't washed her face yet. Such ugly and silly look was actually seen by Xiao Qi's brother. She didn't want to live. Heshi was amused by this girl's cute look, then Gu Lufeng came in at this time. She couldn't help asking, "Did Little Egg and the others went to buy gifts?" Gu Lufeng nodded and smiled. They said they want to bring some souvenirs for Shi Jia and the children of the Virtue Home. Little Egg suggested, then Little Golden Dragon, Little Cow and Shaoli all went with them. Heshi breathed a sigh of relief, but she was still a little worried. She spreading one hand, and purple vines emerged from her palm and shook slightly, conveying a hint of intimacy. At this moment, Bai Hu also walked in from outside the door and just heard their conversation. Seeing Heshi's nervous look, he couldn't help but smiled. "Princess, you are still worried about those little guys. They are all ferocious, in Little Egg's words, it's max combat power. You should worry about those who provoke them instead of these little ones." Heshi had also learned from Purple Abyss Vine at this time that a branch vine of Little Purple was following Little Egg. With the protection of Little Purple, they shouldn't have any problems. She was really relieved. Gu Lufeng smiled gently. "I have already told Little Egg and the others that we will leave at noon, so they will definitely be back at noon." However, after noon, Little Egg and the others did not come back. Heshi's face became dignified, but she was still hoping that the few little guys just forgot the time for fun. However, Purple Abyss Vine, which suddenly shook in her hand, broke her illusion. The clone of Purple Abyss Vine had about 60% to 70% of the attack and defense power of Purple Abyss Vine, but because it had almost no intelligence, the information that could be conveyed to the original body was very limited. From the news sent back from the Purple Abyss Vine clone, Heshi could only know that something really happened to Little Egg and the others. It was the first time that Nangongyu saw Heshi's panic, and her face even turned pale. He hugged Heshi with distress and said softly, "Sheer, don't worry. These spirit beasts have signed a contract with you. Although there may be many ways to block the contract with the owner and the spiritual pet in Miluo continent, at least you can confirm through the contract whether they are still safe." Heshi's eyes widened suddenly. She quickly closed her eyes to feel the contracts in her body. Soon, there were several rays of light on her left hand, and there were magnificent totems looming on it. But to Nangongyu's surprise, in addition to the totem on her left hand, a faint fluorescent light was also lit up on Heshi's heart. The light was still colorful, and it was flickering as if it was breathing. Moreover, because of the emergence of this light, Nangongyu actually had a strange feeling that his body and soul were gently comforted by a powerful and soft vitality. His cultivation that didn't progress for a long time actually had a slight change at this moment. But soon, Heshi opened her eyes with a relieved expression. She said in a low voice, "Fortunately, they are still alive, and they don't seem to have suffered any injuries." As Heshi opened her eyes, the strange power disappeared instantly as if it had never existed. Chapter 1032. Tired of living at this time, Yunlan sect was in a mess as if being blown by a tornado. The square was full of injured people who were being helped to walk in. Some were still lying on the ground, weeping and moaning. Some people couldn't help but look at the distant sky with lingering fears on their faces and said, "I didn't expect the few small spiritual pets that seem to be completely non-threatening are actually so powerful." Alas, this time, Yunlan sect really suffered a heavy loss. "Yeah." The other person clutched his painful chest and coughed a few times. "Fortunately, those benefactors came in time, otherwise our entire Yunlan sect would have to be overturned by those little beasts. I didn't expect it that even the elder of Yunlan sect is not the opponent of those little beasts. However, this is also considered a blessing in disguise." Cough cough. A man wearing Yunlan sect's elite costumes, although his face was ugly, he still showed a sly smile. "We have fought with those spiritual pets, so you should know how special and powerful those spiritual pets are. Now that we hand over these pets, the benefits we can get in the future will be endless." Hee, senior fellow apprentice Feng is right. Thanks to Elder Li for connecting us to the benefactors. If our Yunlan sect's people can be sent there in the future, our future is limitless. It's a pity that we just let go of those little bastards just like that. They even injured so many of us. I really want to peel their skin and cut off their tendons to dispel my hatred. Junior fellow apprentice Zhao, do you think those little beasts will have a good life? Ha! As they were talking and laughing, the door that had just been closed suddenly emitted a loud noise. Immediately afterward, the heavy metal door made a creaking sound as if overwhelmed, then the heavy lock fell and the door was pushed open. Yunlan sect's disciples were surprised at first, but when they saw that it was just a few young men, they were all furious. One of the middle-aged men in charge of the general affairs walked up with an impatient look. Leave, Yunlan sect is not accepting guests today. Didn't you see that we are all busy? Come back another day. However, before the middle-aged man finished speaking, a purple shadow whizzed past. He only felt that his neck was tight, and he was picked up by something around his neck. A clear moving but frosty voice sounded in his ears. Where are the spiritual pets you caught? What spiritual pets? Don't talk nonsense. The middle-aged steward rolled his eyes and shouted sharply, You? How dare you? Do you know what this place is? You dare to cause trouble in our Yunlan sect? Are you tired of living? He laughed lowly. Yes, it is indeed tired of living. The middle-aged steward showed a smug smile, thinking she was scared, but his eyes widened in horror the next moment. There was a frightening clicking sound from his neck, accompanied by bone-breaking pain and the sound of blood gurgling out. The middle-aged manager widened his mouth, making a clicking sound. Then, after a snap sound, his entire neck was broken. His head rolled down from his neck. Chapter 1034. Who is it? Our Yunlan sect almost lost to a few spiritual pets. Fan Guangshuan sighed, then he looked at Li Zhenyu who was sitting below. This time, thanks to Elder Li's decisive decision. We contacted Elder Cheng when we caught those little beasts. Otherwise, we would not only make such a big contribution, but we might suffer a big loss instead. Li Zhenyu, who was sitting in the first place, still looked pale at this time. His chest was wrapped with thick gauze and was fixed with a splint. Even when he spoke or acted, there were pains coming from his chest. Therefore, when Li Zhenyu heard Fan Guangshuan's words, he first smiled, then his facial expression was distorted. The fire of anger and hatred in his eyes could not be covered up. Shiyu, they dare to ruin my Li family. I also want to let them have the taste of losing their precious things. Those little beasts are all amazing and extraordinary, and their breeds are so peculiar. Now that they are lost, I believe that bitch Shiyu will definitely feel distressed for a while. Cough, cough, cough. What's more, such spiritual pets are really rare. The elders of the Doctors Association will be very satisfied. Elder Cheng has promised that he will never forget the credit of our Yunlan sect. When Elder Cheng returns, we will get a lot of benefits. Fan Guangshuan laughed heartily. His eyes filled with ambitious light. The other elders of the Yunlan sect also stood up to congratulate each other, and their faces were full of smiles with Yu Rongyan. In this Miluo continent, who didn't know that building a bridge with the Doctors Association will get a lot of benefits. Especially this Elder Cheng, I heard that he has a big position in the Miracle Healer College. If some of our Yunlan sect's disciples can be recruited, then our Yunlan sect will grow even big in the future. Qingxia sect is now getting more arrogant, relying on the supply of medicinal pills from the Shengda Hall. They now completely look down on our Yunlan sect, the second largest sect of Tiangang Kingdom. They even dare to blacklist our entire Yunlan sect and stopped us from buying the best quality pills. This is really absurd. We have now built a connection with the Doctors Association. Soon, Qingxia sect will become our stepping stone, and we will be the #1 sect of Tiangang Kingdom. Li Zhenyu listened to the discussion with his eyes shining as if he had seen his glorious future. However, just as they were thinking about the glorious future, they suddenly heard a loud bang from the door. Immediately afterward, a dark shadow flew in like a cannonball from the door, and it slammed into the position of one of the laughing elders. He heard a loud bang. Immediately afterward, the elder let out a heart-piercing shout. The mahogany chair sitting under him shattered and collapsed to the ground. Sawdust mixed with dust was scattering in the hall. When the dust dissipated, everyone was shocked looking at the elder who had been hit. 2 corpses laid horizontally on the ground. One had broken bones all over his body. His face was mutilated. The other one was the elder. He had already been dead. That's the elder of the Gold Core stage. How could he be killed just like this? Fan Guangshuan abruptly stood up from his position and shouted at the door, "Who is it?" Chapter 1035. Act wildly. As soon as he spoke, a pretty young man walked in slowly from the door. The young man had long eyebrows and phoenix eyes, snow-white skin, and facial features that were comparable to the snow lotus on the towering mountain. His appearance was obviously alluring and gorgeous, but one could forget about his look by looking at the frosty expression and the icy light in his eyes, arousing a sense of scrupulous and fear in one's mind. Li Zhenyu stood up abruptly when he saw the visitor. He gritted his teeth and said, "Shiyu, you dare to come to Yunlan sect?" The visitor was naturally Heshi, as well as Nangong Yu, Qing Long, Bai Hu, Qing Wan and Gu Lufeng behind her. As for Mo Xiaotu and Shun Qingchua, she let them stay in the city. Heshi glanced at Li Zhenyu with a cold gaze. "Li Zhenyu, I used to treat you as a clown, so I just taught you a lesson without taking your life. But it seems you're tired of living." Li Zhenyu clutched his painful chest, stared at Heshi fiercely, and suddenly laughed. "Shiyu, you came to my Yunlan sect, and you still dare to speak arrogantly. You really think with those gold core stage people behind you, you can do whatever you want in my Yunlan sect?" Yunlan sect is the largest sect in the Tsangming Kingdom. There are dozens of martial artists in the gold core stage, and there is also a patriarch of the nascent soul stage who is currently retreating in the back mountains. If Shiyu thinks he can run wild in Yunlan sect after showing off in the Jinling Kingdom and Yangon City, he is really having a whim. Thinking of this, the pain and hatred on Li Zhenyu's face turned into a proud arrogance. He was originally worried about the forces of the Qingxia sect in Yangon City, so he let go of Shiyu. He didn't expect her to come to Yunlan sect herself. "Ha, you really want to dig your own grave?" Li Zhenyu suddenly laughed. "Cough, cough, cough. Shiyu, I want you to taste the consequence of being arrogant today." As he said, he turned to Fan Guangshuan and said in a deep voice, "Sect Master, this person is Shiyu, the Xingde Hall's owner and the person who really provides the best quality pill for Qingxia sect. As long as we can control this person in our hands, do we still have to worry that we can't grow faster and stronger than the Qingxia sect?" Fan Guangshuan's pupils contracted abruptly, and his breathing became a little short. The other elders on the side also looked over with greedy faces. When Li Zhenyu saw the expressions of Fan Guangshuan and the other elders, he had guessed their thoughts. He was even more confident in his heart and continued, "In addition, there is one more thing, Sect Master. This Shiyu is not just the owner of Xingde Hall. Even the spiritual pets we caught in the morning are all his. He can get such rare best quality pills and tame such special spiritual pets. Even if he can't be of our use, we can just hand him to the Doctors Association." Fan Guangshuan took a deep breath. His voice was slightly low and hoarse, but he and the Qingxia sect have deep connections. "If Qingxia sect knows," Li Zhenyu sneered and said, "Sect Master, if we handle this matter carefully, who will know Shiyu came to our Yunlan sect? Qingxia sect won't even know." Fan Guangshuan's eyes flashed, and he let out a burst of laughter. When these people were talking, Heshi and others watched their performance quietly. Chapter 1036. So much nonsense. Gu Lufeng smiled lightly. Probably, they are used to being aloof and can't recognize their situation for a while. Fan Guangshuan listened to their careless attitude of looking down at them, and he was filled with anger. He said coldly, "Just a few martial artists of the gold core stage, and you think you are invincible? You dare to act wild in my Yunlan sect? Brothers, let's teach them how to be humble. It's really noisy." Nangong Yu, who had been silent for a long time, suddenly spoke slowly. "Since they don't recognize the situation, let them take a good look themselves." As soon as Nangong Yu finished his words, he flicked his sleeve. Suddenly, a rumbling sound resounded in the hall, and the roof above it collapsed in a crack. With just a second, it was actually turned into dust. Fan Guangshuan and others standing in the hall were all horrified, looking toward the front of the hall. When they saw the scene in front of them clearly, they all took a quick breath. The original arrogance on their faces turned into deep fear and amazement instantly. There were hundreds of martial artists in black armor standing on the square outside the Yunlan sect's hall. They lined up neatly one by one, blocking every exit of Yunlan sect tightly. In the square, the Yunlan sect disciples who were in the process of healing the wounds were lying silently on the ground at this time. The entire Yunlan sect, the original lively and noisy Yunlan sect, now looked like a ghost town. There was neither a sound or a person there. A deep fear surged in Fan Guangshuan's heart. He tremblingly pointed at Shi Yu and said with sharp and hurried tone, "You, who are you? Who are these people?" Hushi stepped forward, and the purple vines in her hand flew out like streamers flying all over the sky. Fan Guangshuan was shocked, and he was about to cast a magic weapon to resist. Suddenly, a pressure made him feel terrified. He seemed to be drowned in the icy blood for a while, making him unable to move a bit. All the elders in the hall also had the same feeling. Each of them was horrified. They could only watch the purple vines released by Hushi sweeping over, but their bodies were unable to move because of the overwhelming spiritual pressure. After a while, all the elders in the hall were firmly tied up by purple vines and placed in a row in front of Hushi. Hushi walked slowly in front of Li Zhenyu, and the tip of the purple vine lifted his chin. Her cold voice was murderous. "Go ahead, Li Zhenyu, where did you send my spiritual pets? If you tell me, I might give you a quick death." Li Zhenyu's eyes widened, staring at her closely as if looking at a monster. "You? Who are you? What are those troops? Those are not Qingxiasek's disciples. What are they? Too much nonsense." Heshi sighed softly, "I don't have the patience to listen to you." After speaking, she lightly sprinkled a handful of silver powder in her hand. Li Zhenyu's voice stopped abruptly. Chapter 1037. Bad mood. The next moment, his entire face was distorted from pain, then he rolled on the ground frantically. While rolling, he scratched his skin and knocked his bones non-stop. He even broke his injured ribs, but he didn't seem to feel it. Heshi was satisfied that Li Zhenyu was so painful that he lost his mind, but she could no longer bother him. She turned her gaze slightly and looked at another elder. "Then now it's your turn. Can you tell me where my spiritual pets went?" No, I don't know." "What spiritual pets? I don't know what you are talking about." Before the words were finished, a sword light flashed. The elder was decapitated. Hushi squinted slightly with impatience. "I'll ask again, where are my spiritual pets?" "I'm sorry, I'm in a bad mood today and my patience is limited. If you all don't say anything, then I will have to sprinkle the medicine I used on Li Zhenyu on each of you." Heshi's words made the remaining elders of Yunlan's sect almost instinctively look toward Li Zhenyu. His entire face was now bloody, and he kept bumping his head against the pillar crazily. Seeing this, there was only fear and despair in the elders' hearts. Hushi slowly took out the bottle containing the silver powder and chuckled softly. "I count to 3. Wait, stop, I say. Fan Guangshuan finally couldn't bear it, and he said in fear, "I know where your spiritual pet went. They were taken away by the elder of the Doctors' Association." "Which elder?" "Yes, it's Elder Cheng." "Elder Cheng?" Heshi frowned slightly. Qing Wan stepped forward and whispered in her ear, "Miss, Elder Cheng is the master of the previous Zhu Quebec. He is an 8th grade doctor and has a high status in the Doctors' Association." "Zhu Kei's master?" Heshi narrowed her eyes, and a hint of murderousness flashed in her eyes. "No matter who it is, those who dare to touch my little ones should deserve to die 10,000 times." She continued to look at Fan Guangshuan. "Where were they taken?" "I don't know." Fan Guangshuan's eyes flickered slightly, and he whispered. Li Zhenyu contacted him and passed the spiritual pets to him. "I don't know. I really don't know where were they sent." Hushi smiled, and the purple vine suddenly swayed. The sharp tip of the vine suddenly pierced into the chest of one of the elders. The elder let out a miserable howl, then his blood was sucked by the purple abyss vine quickly. In the blink of an eye, he turned from a vigorous old man to a mummy. Fan Guangshuan's pupils shrank suddenly, and his body instinctively moved back, shaking constantly. Heshi narrowed her eyes and said, "Do you want to become the next mummy, or you want to taste the same pain as Li Zhenyu?" I think medicine powder. It can make you suffer longer, right?" I say, please don't kill me, don't kill me." At this time, Fan Guangshuan was utterly terrified as he no longer dared to hide. It is the Miracle Healer Academy. The Miracle Healer Academy has been collecting rare beasts. Therefore, the rare beasts we collected before will also be transferred there. Chapter 1038. Remove their root. As he said, he couldn't help begging for mercy. Please let us go, we are just helping them. This has nothing to do with us. Li Zhenyu came up with this idea, and your spiritual pets were also caught by him. And the elder of the Doctors Association is also contacted by him. We really don't know anything about this. Heshi's eyes flickered with a dark light, and she slowly uttered 4 words, Miracle Healer Academy. Qing Wan stepped forward and said, Miss, I know which direction Miracle Healer Academy is in. Let's go now, maybe it's still not too late. Heshi nodded and looked at Nangongyu. Nangongyu smiled slightly, stretched out his hand to rub her head, and whispered, Go, I'll take care of the rest. Heshi only felt warm in her heart. Her panicking heart was calmed because of his smile full of tolerance and pampering. As long as the man stood by her side, she felt that she had found her support and she would not fall. Heshi squeezed Nangongyu's hand, then she cast the flying sword and flew away without stopping. Those who left with Heshi were Gu Lufeng, Qing Luan and Bai Hu. Qing Long stayed with Nangongyu. Seeing Heshi leave, the purple vines that originally bound Fan Guangshuan also disappeared like they were melted. Fan Guangshuan breathed a sigh of relief. His eyes flickered sullenly as he looked at Nangongyu and Qing Long. They were now looking at the direction that Heshi left without paying attention to them. Fan Guangshuan and the remaining elders of Yunlan's sect looked at each other, and their eyes looked vicious. In the next moment, all of them suddenly flew into the air with their magic weapons and spiritual power shining, charging at Nangongyu and Qing Long. There were more than a dozen gold core stage martial artists here, so they believed they could deal with merely 2 gold core stage cultivators. Naturally, Nangongyu had already sensed the movements of Fan Guangshuan and others. He made a cold sneer. When their attacks were about to hit him, a flash of sword light appeared from his hand. Piercing, painful screams sounded all at once. Even when Fan Guangshuan's lower half-body fell, he still didn't realize what had happened. At the last moment of his life, he widened his eyes and stared at Nangongyu. Nangongyu was so much taller than him at this time, and the dazzling sunlight shone on his face, reflecting that unparalleled appearance. Fan Guangshuan forgot the fear of death and the pain of his whole body for a while. He only muttered in disbelief, King of Hell? You are King of Hell? How could thou? We just wanted to catch a few spiritual pets to get the connection with the Doctors Association and make a great contribution. We just dreamed of increasing Yunlan sect's strength to a higher level and even eventually replacing Qingxia sect as the largest sect. We just caught a few spiritual pets, but we provoked an unmatched powerhouse. I'm really unwilling. Nangongyu took back the sealed dragon sword and said lightly to Qing Long, the back mountain of the Yunlan sect has their patriarch. He just broke through the nascent soul stage a few years ago, but his realm is not stable yet and he is old. Qing Long, go and remove their root. Qing Long was startled slightly, then he bowed his head without hesitation. Yes, master. Chapter 1039. Submissive. As soon as he answered, he turned into a blue light and disappeared into the mountains. Not many people know that Qing Long had reached the gold core stage perfect stage as early as 10 years ago, and he had been trying to break through 5 years ago. Because of his cultivation method, he had been suppressing his cultivation at the gold core stage so that he could have a stronger strength after the breakthrough. However, his strength had gradually surpassed the nascent soul early stage master in the past few years. After the battle in the Lu Li sect, he even had the strength to kill the nascent soul early stage master. Under the cloudless blue sky, an ordinary-looking airship was moving fast in the sky. The aircraft was not big. There was only 1 cabin and 2 rooms, but the layout inside was luxurious and comfortable. At this time, in the corner of the airship room, a huge cage was placed. Inside the cage were Little Egg, Little Golden Dragon, Xiao Li and Little Dumb Cow. On the side of a jade-carved seat, there was a middle-aged man with eagle eyes and high nose sitting on it. His appearance was not very eye-catching, but his hands were quite a bit longer than ordinary people. They were thin and dark. They were just as creepy as the spider legs. At this time, The middle-aged man was looking at a few small spiritual pets who were in a coma with admiration and satisfaction. Suddenly, a man's low voice came beside him. "Elder Cheng is really good. You actually get the spiritual pets of Shiyu. I've fought with these spiritual pets, and they have pretty good skills. Even ordinary gold core stage martial artists will suffer a loss under their hands, but now in the hands of Elder Cheng, they are so submissive." The middle-aged man immediately looked prouder as he looked at the young man next to him. The young man had clear facial features. Although he was handsome, he gave a gloomy feeling to others. It turned out to be Feng Yunjing, who appeared in Yinjing City a few days ago. It turned out that after Feng Yunjing escaped from death at the Nalan Mansion, he returned to Feng family with the body of Hall Master Zheng without stopping for a moment. Feng family was in a commotion because of the death of Hall Master Zheng and the speech prohibition art on Feng Yunjing. They also heard the rumor that Nalan Mansion was razed to the ground, so they knew that the speech prohibition art was related to the disappearance of Nalan Mansion. However, no matter what method they used, there was no way to find anything wrong with Feng Yunjing. The speech prohibition art was clearly cast, but they couldn't even trace the speech prohibition art. With this alone, they could imagine how powerful the person who raised Nalan Mansion was. The more so, the more Feng family's members wanted to know about this person from Feng Yunjing. Feng Yunjing was also worried about the speech prohibition art on his body, which was like a time bomb. If he accidentally leaked it, he would be dead like Hall Master Zheng. So in the end, the elders of the Feng family got the conclusion was that if the speech prohibition art on Feng Yunjing could really be solved by someone, then only the president of the Doctors Association, Lu Shuyang, could do it. Lu Shuyang was the most amazing genius in the entire Miluo continent except Nangongyu. He was not only proficient in medical skills, but also arrays and some rare spells. If they found Lu Shuyang, then perhaps Feng Yunjing's speech prohibition art could be solved. However, Feng Yunjing contacted the people in the Doctors Association, only to learn that Lu Shuyang was not in the association now, but he went to Miracle Healer Academy. Thus, Feng Yunjing hurried over. Chapter 1040. Can even sleep like this, who knows? He happened to run into Elder Cheng and the little ones he had caught. Feng Yunjing almost recognized these spiritual pets when he saw them. They were Shiyu's. Elder Cheng slightly licked his lips and said, "Why is young Master Feng so sure that these spiritual pets are Shiyu's?" Shiyu. Nowadays, no one in the medical field of the Miluo continent didn't know this name. Especially the elders of the Doctors Association couldn't wait to dig out the best quality pill formula and the pill refiner behind Shiyu immediately. Feng Yunjing nodded and said, "I said that I have fought against these spiritual pets and will never recognize mistakenly. And I also know that Shiyu treasures her spiritual pets very much, so as long as the spiritual pet is in the hands of Elder Cheng, she will come to you sooner or later. And as long as Shiyu comes, he will never escape from my hands." Elder Cheng snorted coldly when he heard the words, and a murderous light flashed in his eyes. Shiyu, just an inexperienced kid, dares to go against the Doctors Association. I want to see how good he is. With that said, Elder Cheng flicked his sleeves, got up and walked out. Feng Yunjing smiled slightly and walked out. After the two left the cabin, Little Dragon, who was in a coma in the cage, suddenly opened his eyes and looked around. After confirming that there was no one on the side and would not be found, he hurriedly pushed the small partner beside him from behind. With a push, Xiao Li immediately opened her eyes. Her beautiful and cute smiling face was sober. She didn't look drowsy at all. After the little girl sat up, she was not panicked or excited, but she lowered her eyes with worry and contemplation. Little Golden Dragon glanced at her and didn't say anything, then turned around and pushed Little Egg and Little Dumb Cow. Who knows, these two little guys didn't even react at all. Little Golden Dragon suddenly panicked. Did Old Man's trick work on them? He flew toward Little Egg. As he was about to shout anxiously, a low snoring sound suddenly came into his ears. Take a closer look. Little Golden Dragon was dumbfounded. He couldn't wait to slap these two guys into pig heads. It turned out that these two little guys were not injured, but fell asleep. Little Egg's pink and tender pig's nose still made a snoring sound. He really slept soundly. Little Golden Dragon raised his paws angrily and slapped their heads. Bad guy, want to fight? Little Egg leaped up and clutched his small paws into punches. He was ready to fight. Little Dumb Cow blinked his eyes and sat up stupidly. He obviously still didn't know the current situation. Little Golden Dragon slapped Little Egg's head angrily and shouted in a low voice, "You're looking for a fight. Big lazy pig, you can even fall asleep like this? You might as well sleep to death." Even Xiao Li, who was worried, was amused by the cute looks of Little Egg and Little Cow's dumb looks. "Huh." Little Egg rubbed his head, looked at the surroundings and suddenly became fully awake. Where are we? Why are we in the cage? Oh, Little Dragon, you're awake." Little Golden Dragon glanced at him and said, "Nonsense, what, I'm awake. I didn't sleep at all. Really, if we rely on you two fools, we must be sold." Little Egg was a little embarrassed at once. He touched his paws and said stutteringly, Little Golden Dragon, don't be angry. I know I'm wrong. Don't we have to pretend to fall asleep? Isn't it more realistic to really fall asleep?" Chapter 1041. Inform Miss Little Golden Dragon snorted coldly. He still put up a stern face, but he somewhat softened his attitude. "You guys should be alert to me. This old man is a master of nascent soul stage. I also saw that pervert Feng Yunjing also came. We aren't their opponents when they join forces. If some of us are injured, how should we explain to boss when we go back?" Xiao Li frowned immediately upon hearing this. She said anxiously, "Miss can't find us. She must be worried about us now." Little Egg heard that Heshi would be worried, and he immediately said with a flat mouth, "Will Mom be angry? She is most unhappy that we risked wildly and put ourselves in danger. Mom will definitely ignore us when we go back." Little Golden Dragon also said with a bitter face, "The point is that we didn't leave any message to boss before disappearing. It's strange if boss is not worried." It turned out that when these four little ones went to Yangon City to buy things in the morning, but they were ambushed by Li Zhenyu and Yunlan Sect's people in a remote alley. No matter how small the enmity was, they would revenge no matter how. Li Zhenyu wanted to harm Heshi numerous times, and now he even wanted to rob them. How could these little ones let them go easily? So, when Li Zhenyu and the others spilled the medicinal powder, Little Golden Dragon and the others pretended to faint and were carried back to Yunlan Sect by them. But in fact, this kind of knockout drug was not a problem for Little Egg, who had countless kinds of antidote in his body. Although the poison was detoxified, Little Golden Dragon and the others pretended to be unconscious and went to Yunlan's sect along the way. When everyone in Yunlan's sect relaxed their vigilance, they suddenly rushed out and relied on their agile movements to fool those Yunlan sect's disciples and elders around. Yunlan sect clearly had more than a dozen gold core stage masters, but they were all flustered. When they nearly caught the little ones, they escaped from their hands. The entire Yunlan sect was in chaos. During the period, they stole a lot of treasures. Fan Guangshuan was infuriated. It was a pity that happiness breeds sorrow. Just when the little ones were done fooling them and were about to leave Yunlan sect, an old man riding an aircraft descended from the sky. This old man turned out to be a master at the nascent soul stage. Although Little Egg had good skills, they were already overwhelmed to deal with the dozen of gold core stage martial artists with their endless strange techniques. Facing the nascent soul stage master, how could they fight back? The old man even sprinkled a more advanced knockout drug on them. Even Little Egg and Xiao Li almost fainted when they inhaled it. If Little Egg didn't let the others take the antidote quickly, they would really fall asleep now. However, because they did not have the power to resist, all of them were stuffed into a special cage by the old man. Little Egg originally wanted to let Little Dumb Cow use teleport to escape, but he couldn't do it. Just when the little guys were at a loss, there was a chattering voice from the window. As soon as Xiao Li looked up, she saw a colorful hummingbird resting on the window edge, chirping at her. Xiao Li's eyes suddenly lit up, and she was overjoyed and said, "It's Little Hummingbird. Great, I have a way to notify Miss." After listening to Xiao Li's instructions, the hummingbird flew out of the window and disappeared into the sky. Chapter 1042, Long Admiration. Little Egg looked at Xiaoli with admiration and said with shining eyes, "Sister Xiaoli, you are so smart and amazing. Why do birds listen to you?" Xiaoli's face blushed slightly and she whispered, "I hope Little Hummingbird can inform Mississippi." "Aya." Little Egg suddenly thought of something and he said anxiously, "But that pervert is here too, how? If Mom comes, she will be bullied by that pervert again?" Xiaoli couldn't help but curiously asked, "What is pervert?" Pervert means very, very bad. Very wretched and annoying. Little Egg clenched his small fists and said angrily, "Every time that pervert sees Mom, he wants to take advantage of Mom. He is really bad." Xiaoli let out a cry and covered her face. Her clear eyes were full of confusion and worry. "What should we do then?" Little Golden Dragon sneered, "Don't worry, have you forgotten that boss still has your daddy with her? Nangong Yu is amazing. He can definitely teach that pervert Feng Yunjing a lesson. I'm afraid he will leave now." He knew from the very beginning that Xiaoli had the ability to communicate with animals, so when she saw the stop spiritual hummingbird chirping around her non-stop, she immediately followed the spiritual hummingbird. The speed of the spiritual hummingbird was extremely fast, and the speed of Hishi's flying sword had reached its limit. However, within the time of an incense, they caught with the aircraft flying ahead. When Heshi and the others approached the aircraft, Elder Cheng and Feng Yunjing immediately sensed it. Feng Yunjing's eyes looking at Heshi were full of possessiveness. After knowing the true identity of Shiyu, he wanted to get this woman even more. He wanted to own her body and the secret on her. Elder Cheng looked up and down this beautiful young man with unkind eyes. It was this man who let his talented disciple Zhu Ke lose power in the King of Hell Mansion and even died. It was also the Shengde Hall ran by this man that caused the Doctors Association to fall into an unprecedented crisis. If he brought this person back to the Doctors Association, the president and other elders would be very happy. Thinking of this, he took a step forward and slowly smiled. "Mr. Shi, I really admire your name for a long time." Heshi and said solemnly with a cold face, "Where are my spiritual pets?" "Your spiritual pets are naturally well received in the cabin." Feng Yunjing intercepted the elder words and said in a low tone, "Shiyu, if you want to see the spiritual pets, come on in this aircraft now." Heshi chuckled, but her eyes were full of murderousness. "Good. Very good. You better not let me see my spiritual pets being hurt." As soon as she finished, she flew into the sky. Instead of rushing toward the aircraft, she pointed the Li Shui sword in the sky and slashed down abruptly. Feng Yunjing had seen Hishi's flying flower sword rain, but he didn't take it seriously. However, when the sword rain fell from the sky, the entire flying boat shook violently. The protective shield that originally covered the flying boat shattered, and the doctors who served Elder Cheng on the flying boat screamed and fell onto the deck. Everything on the flying boat was swaying, and even the things in the cabin slipped out because of the shock. I'm going to fall." "What? Stupid cow, move away. Stupid pighead and dumb cow, be careful not to hurt Xiaoli." Because of this violent shaking, a huge cage rolled out of the cabin and hit the ship's side heavily. A few familiar voices came out from the cage. Chapter 1043, really bold when her eyes fell on Little Egg and other little guys, she finally breathed a sigh of relief. Little Egg, who was thrown dizzy, grabbed the cage and stood up. Seeing Heshi not far away, he suddenly cried out in surprise, "Moom, you are finally here." Little Golden Dragon and Xiaoli also straightened up happily, looked at Heshi and shouted, "Miss/Boss." Elder Cheng and Feng Yunjing, who had finally stabilized the swaying flying boat on the deck, looked ugly, and they looked at Heshi with scrupulous. Feng Yunjing's gaze became more scorching. His figure suddenly flashed and appeared before Heshi. His presumptuous eyes were full of lust and domineering. He looked up and down Hishi's beautiful face, then he said hoarsely, "I didn't expect your cultivation to improve by a lot after we parted for a few months. Should I be surprised by your amazing talents, or should I be curious about what kind of adventure you have gotten? Within just half a year, How did you turn from a useless person without cultivation into a genius that can rival the gold core stage martial artists? Heshi squinted slightly, and a hint of shock flashed past his eyes. The meaning of Feng Yunjing's words doesn't seem simple. What does he know? Feng Yunjing laughed and said, or I shouldn't call you Shiyu, but Nailin Heshi? When he said this, Feng Yunjing's eyes were fixed on Heshi's face, wanting to see panic from her face. However, he was disappointed. Heshi slowly sneered, Feng Yunjing, your news is really good. Since you have found out that my name is Nailin Heshi, do you see who raised Nailin family to the ground? When Heshi said this, Feng Yunjing shivered instinctively. The man in red clothes that made him surrender and feel fear and despair seemed to appear before him again. The speech prohibition art that made him feel threatened all the time also got into his mind. His face turned gloomy, and he said coldly, Shiyu, you escaped from my hands in Breaking Spirit Mountain last time, but this time, you are not so lucky. No matter how much your cultivation has improved, you aren't my opponent. This time, I will let you be my woman immediately. Before Feng Yunjing finished his words, he hurriedly back away in shock. But it was too late. He only felt a sharp pain in his shoulder. A piece of meat and bone was sliced off by a sword aura. The white bones and gushing blood made Feng Yunjing's face distorted. He stared at the figure behind Heshi. A tall man appeared behind Heshi from nowhere, then he hugged Heshi into his arms with his long arm. Nangong Yu. Feng Yunjing gritted his teeth and spit out these three words. Pain, hatred and fear intertwined and surged into his heart, causing his face to turn hideous. The person was naturally Nangong Yu, who had eliminated Yunlan sect and caught up with Heshi. Nangong Yu hugged Heshi lightly, but his eyes with a hint of smile fell on Feng Yunjing. That smile obviously looked gentle, but it always gave a sense of creepy horror. His slender finger gently stroked Heshi's temple hair as he said slowly, Feng Yunjing, you are so bold. Ever since the incident in Breaking Spirit Mountain, I didn't settle the account with you, but you come to me yourself. It seems that you really can't wait to die immediately. Chapter 1044. You even have the face to say it, but today's Nangong Yu made him feel a sense of terror from the bottom of his heart. Nangong Yu, what do you mean? Do you really want to have a fallout with the Feng family? Feng Yunjing said so, but he quickly retreated back into the flying boat. After standing next to Elder Cheng and confirming that there were two masters of the nascent soul stage on his side, Feng Yunjing breathed a sigh of relief. No matter how strong Nangong Yu was, he couldn't take advantage of it. His tone sounded a little tough. Nangong Yu, you better think about it carefully. Is it worth it to go against the Feng family for a woman? Isn't our Feng family good enough for you? In the early stage, we Feng family supported you in many ways for developing Iron Kirin. You took over the Yanjing city, but we Feng family didn't condemn you at all. Now I just want a woman from you, then you should just give her to me. Why are you so obsessed with her? You can get so many women in this world, and I can even get hundreds of them to you. Nangong Yu sighed lightly, released Heshi, took a step forward, and slowly said, Feng Yunjing, don't force me to kill you now. I have thought of 100 ways to torture you and the Feng family. If I kill you out of anger now, wouldn't it be too boring? Having said that, the sealed dragon sword appeared in his hand. He launched a sword aura toward the flying boat. The flying boat that was staggered by Heshi was slashed in half like tofu. Many of the people on the flying boat were just martial artists from the Foundation Establishment stage and Meridian stage. They cut in half by the sword aura before they managed to escape. At the same time, the giant cage that locked the little ones was also slashed apart. The little ones felt the cold sword aura brushed past their fur. As the flying boat collapsed, they even fell out while screaming nonstop. Heshi moved almost the moment the cage was slashed open, and she quickly appeared where the little ones fell out and kept them back into the void. Both Elder Cheng and Feng Yunjing were caught off guard. They hurriedly released their flying swords to maintain their figures in the air. Elder Cheng furiously said, Nangong Yu, what do you want to do? You killed my disciple. I haven't questioned you yet. Now you dare to destroy my flying boat and rob my spiritual pets? You really want to fight the Doctors' Association? Nan Gongyu sneered. Your spiritual pets? You even have the face to say it. Feng Yunjing had a deep fear of Nan Gongyu in his heart at this time. He even couldn't face him head-on. Hearing this, he immediately approached the elder and said, Nan Gongyu and Shiyu have a very close friendship, so he must be here to take back Shiyu's spiritual pets. Elder Cheng was furious hearing that. He didn't feel the guilt of stealing someone else's spiritual pets at all. Instead, he said righteously, Nan Gongyu, these little things are things that the Miracle Healer Academy wants. You'd better be smart and let Shiyu summon all her spiritual pets. By the time, the Miracle Healer Academy will naturally benefit her. Otherwise, you know what is the consequence of offending the Miracle Healer Academy. Chapter 1045. Ignorant, you nonsense. Elder Cheng's face turned pale as if his sore spot was being poked. He furiously said, You brat, what are you to talk to me like this? I will kill you right now. As soon as the voice fell, he flew into the air and launched an ice arrow at Baihu. He used all his power in this shot. Not to mention a martial artist of the Gold Core stage, even a nascent Soul Stage martial artist might not be able to escape. Baihu looked solemn. He was about to defend with a magic weapon. In a blink of an eye, Nan Gongyu's figure appeared in front of him. He stretched out his slender jade hand gently and easily caught the flying arrow. Elder Cheng's eyes widened suddenly, and he watched the ice arrow launched by him with most of his power turning into dust in Nan Gongyu's fingers. The ice arrow could even shock the nascent Soul Stage martial artists. Nan Gongyu, hasn't he advanced to the nascent Soul Stage in just a few years? How could it be possible? How could he be so powerful? Elder Cheng swallowed, and he said in a deep voice, Nan Gongyu, if you really want to protect Shiyu, I can also give you face. As long as Shiyu calls out the little demonic dragon and the little girl, I don't want the other spiritual pets. We each take a step back, what do you think? When Elder Cheng caught a few pets, he discovered that the little magical dragon should have been transformed from a golden flying dragon, and the little girl was the avatar of the nine-tailed silver fox. Both of these were legendary magical beasts that were sought after by countless martial artists. He had to get them no matter how. As for the pink pig and the ugly cow, he had not figured out what species they were, so he didn't care too much about them. Nan Gongyu smiled lightly, and a thunderball popped out in his palm. Following the movement of his fingers, the thunderball made a crackling sound as it kept thumbing. He fiddled with the thunderball for a while before he shook his head and sighed. People say that people are knife and chopping board, I'm the fish. Fish should of course be more obedient. However, you two are obviously the fish, but why are you still so ignorant? Presumptuous. Elder Cheng was finally fully triggered by Nan Gongyu's arrogant attitude. Nan Gongyu, don't choose the hard way. We have two nascent Soul Stage martial artists here. Do you think you stand a chance against the two of us? Who is choosing the hard way? Make a move and you know. What's the point of so much nonsense? Nan Gongyu sneered, and he rose up and threw the thunderball toward them. Of course, Feng Yunjing and Elder Cheng didn't take a mere thunderball seriously. Feng Yunjing cast a magic shield and charged toward the thunderball. Hearing the crashing sound, Feng Yunjing only felt a heartbreaking pain in his hand, then the magic shield disappeared without a trace before him. Pala. The rumbling thunder struck Feng Yunjing, making him twitch all over. All his hair stood up one by one, his clothes and skin were scorched, his eyes were rolling and trembling. Chapter 1046. Too easy on him at the moment of his death, Elder Cheng lowered his magic weapon to hold him and stuffed a few medicinal pills into his mouth. Feng Yunjing's scorched body twitched, and he finally opened his eyes again. He opened his mouth and said with a hoarse voice, his eyes were full of fear, Why I can't stop his thunderball? Elder Cheng also had a solemn expression and he said bitterly, he must have some powerful magic weapon in his hand. The sword in his hand seems to exude a breath of dragon pressure. It must be a powerful magic weapon. It seems that Nan Gongyu really wants to kill us. We can only survive by working together. When I survive, I will definitely let him suffer. Feng Yunjing endured the pain in his body, stood up, gritted his teeth and said, "Well, I don't believe he can beat us if we join hands." At this time, Nangong Yu had leisurely released the sealed dragon sword and formed a gesture. The sealed dragon sword made a terrifying dragon chant before flying straight at Elder Cheng and Feng Yunjing. As soon as the dragon roar came out, the lower creatures advanced and surrendered. Although Feng Yunjing and Elder Cheng were already masters of nascent soul stage and the sealed dragon sword, in Nangong Yu's hands was a counterfeit, they still felt frightening hearing this dragon roar and seeing the oncoming sealed dragon sword. Elder Cheng's hand holding the magic weapon even kept shaking. He somehow felt that Nangong Yu's sword was so devastating that he couldn't defend at all. However, apart from defending, he had no other way at all. "Nephew Feng, quickly use your strongest defensive magic weapon, otherwise we..." Before Elder Cheng finished speaking, he suddenly felt a strong force coming from behind, then he involuntarily went in the direction of sealed dragon sword. Pete dash. Sealed dragon sword penetrated his chest, but it still flew toward Feng Yunjing without stopping. Elder Cheng opened a pair of bloodshot eyes and looked back in disbelief. What he saw was Feng Yunjing activating a life-saving inscribed teleportation jade slip and his crazy red eyes. The last thing that remained in Elder Cheng's ears was Feng Yunjing's vicious laughter. "Elder Cheng, you're old and won't survive for a few years, so please block this sword for me. Don't worry, when I escape I will revenge for you. Just die with peace of mind." "Ah." Feng Yunjing. Elder Cheng let out an unwilling and heartbreaking scream as he watched Feng Yunjing disappeared in the light. His internal organs and dantian, that had been severely damaged, finally couldn't bear the power of sealed dragon sword and suddenly exploded. Qing Wan's figure flickered, avoiding the splashing flesh and bones of Elder Cheng. With a wave of her green smoke fan, she obtained all Elder Cheng's magic weapons and storage devices. Qing Wan took the thing back to Heshi, glanced at the direction where Feng Yunjing disappeared, and couldn't help but say in depression, "I didn't expect to let Feng Yunjing run away again. This is too easy for him." Nangong Yu retrieved the sealed dragon sword and sneered. "It's true that he ran away, but it may not be too easy for him." Heshi raised her eyebrows and asked incurious, "When the inscribed teleportation jade slip was activated just now, you seem to have launched a few spiritual power in his direction. What are those for?" Chapter 1047. Separation, Change the Location? Nangong Yu nodded with a smile, but his face was full of cold, evil intentions. Feng Yunjing is now covered with wounds and blood, so if he falls into the magical beast forest like this, how will he end up? Magical beast forest? Heshi was taken aback for a moment, then she couldn't help laughing. It's not just because Feng Yunjing is covered with wounds, right? And his scorched skin. And he will definitely become the delicious food that magical beasts are vying for. Nangong Yu lowered his head and kissed her laughing mouth, but his eyes were slightly dull. However, the magical beast forest can't block message transmission. Feng Yunjing may not be able to die. Moreover, once he reports my strength and the news of Elder Cheng's death to the Feng family and the Doctors Association, I'm afraid the Feng family will start to act. Qing Long also stepped forward and said, "Master, I want to report to you that there is news from Xian Wu and Wu Yu that the Feng family seems to have begun to take action in various kingdoms. Especially the edge of the magical beast forest, that Iron Kirin, the Feng family's people began to increase." Nangong Yu's eyes were dim, and he sneered, "I'm still afraid that they won't make a move." But, he looked down at Heshi, "Shir, the Feng family has started to act. I must go back to preside over the overall situation. You go back with me, En?" Heshi was hesitating, but Xiao Li's whisper came from the void. She was taken aback, then she shook her head and said, "Nangong Yu, I have some things to deal with here. I may need to go to Miracle Healer Academy first. What's more, my current status is quite special. Staying by your side will restrict your actions instead." Nangong Yu's shining eyes suddenly dimmed, and he put his arm around Heshi and said with a slightly aggrieved voice, "Shir, I haven't seen you for a long time. Are you willing to separate from me?" Heshi was naturally a little bit reluctant, but the only feeling of parting was dispelled by Nangong Yu's tone and attitude. She took out a large stack of talisman papers from her arm, handed them to Nangong Yu's hand, and whispered, "These talismans were given to me by a remarkable man in crafting talisman. They contain a voice message talisman, item transfer talisman, and the recording talisman. Even if we are thousands of miles away, it can be delivered, unlike inscribed jade slip that can only convey simple messages." As she said, her face was a little hot, and she lowered her voice. "If you miss me, send me a voice message talisman. I will reply to it. If you want to see me or eat my food, I can also send you video recording talisman and item transfer talisman. In short, we won't be not seeing each other for a long time." Nangong Yu looked down at the girl in his arms. Heshi was always cold and arrogant, but occasionally facing him, she would have the shyness of a little girl. And he really loved Heshi like this. Just thinking that he couldn't be with his loved one, even if he can send a voice message and see a recording talisman, he felt an indescribable depression for not being to hold her in his arms. He couldn't wait to tie her around him so that she couldn't leave even one step. Chapter 1048. Something happened? Nangong Yu lowered his head and stabilized the soft pink lips. He didn't bother about the presence of Bai Hu and the others and kissed her passionately, sucking the sweet nectar from her mouth. After a long time, Heshi panted and pushed away the man who was almost out of control, and she looked around. When found that Bai Hu and others had already disappeared, she was relieved. But thinking that the scene just now fell into everyone's eyes, she felt so embarrassed that she wanted to peel off the man's face again. Such a shameless rascal. His face must be thicker than the city wall. Nangong Yu smiled and grabbed the girl's fist to his chest, then he said hoarsely, "As soon as there is danger, activate my avatar inscribed jade slip. No matter what I'm doing, I will come as soon as possible. Do you hear me?" Heshi nodded and whispered, "So do you. Don't let yourself be in danger. If you need any medicinal pill or magic weapon, tell me. I will deliver them to you." Nangong Yu squeezed her small jaw with burning eyes. His voice was even more hoarse. "Sheer is really empathetic. But if I really miss you, can you send yourself to me?" Heshi kicked him away and cursed, "Get lost." This guy is really getting more and more arrogant. Nangong Yu let out a low laugh. After the two spoke for a while, they finally had to say goodbye. Nangong Yu left Bai Hu and Qing Wan, and even Godspeed to Heshi. He just brought Qing Long away. As soon as Nangong Yu left, the little guys in the void immediately jumped out. Shaoli stood in front of Heshi with a face full of guilt and said in a sobbing tone, "Miss, did Shaoli trouble you that you can't follow the handsome brother back?" Heshi rubbed the little girl's head and smiled loudly, "Nothing, I didn't want to meddle the matter between the Feng family and Nangong Yu. What he wants is to confront the Feng family openly, that's what I'm good at. I like to do things secretly. So even if I go back with him, I will just go back to Yanjing instead of the magical beast forest. We are still on different ways." Shaoli breathed a sigh of relief, then she realized her crying face, blushed and wiped her nose. Little Egg jumped to Shaoli's side and said with concern, "Sister Shaoli, you just kept crying in the void and you even called brother, what happened?" Shaoli's tears that had just stopped suddenly seemed to surge again. She grabbed Heshi's sleeve and said, "Miss, can you show me the relic of that Elder Cheng?" Heshi certainly wouldn't refuse, and she quickly took out all of Elder Cheng's things. As soon as Shaoli saw one of the jade pendants, she immediately rushed over, grabbed the jade pendant, and then couldn't help crying, "Miss, it's this is Brother Wu Chi's." "Miss, did something happen to Brother Wu Chi?" "Wu?" Heshi's face suddenly became serious. She took the jade pendant and took a closer look, but she didn't see anything special. "Are you sure you didn't recognize the wrong thing?" Shaoli nodded with tears and said, "I won't. Miss, this jade pendant is not special, but the decoration on the jade pendant is made of my own tail hair. It can confuse people at critical moments. I also bought this jade pendant for Brother Wu Chi. Miss, what should I do? Something must have happened to Brother Wu." Chapter 1049. Miracle Healer Academy. Xiao Li's eyes widened immediately. She clutched Hishi's sleeve and asked hopefully, "Miss, is it true? Is Brother Wu Qi still alive? Can we really find Brother Wu Qi?" Heshi smiled gently, rubbed her little head and said, When did I lie to you?" "Yes." "Xiao Li, don't cry anymore." The few little ones also ran over and gathered around Xiao Li, eloquently comforting, "With us here, we will definitely be able to help you rescue your brother." Xiao Li felt everyone's sincere concern, and the sadness on her face was gradually replaced by a warm smile. But she still couldn't help worrying. "But miss, where are we going to find brother? Isn't it obvious?" Heshi smiled and said, "The place that Elder Qing wanted to send you guys to. Wu Qi is most likely be there. Where should we find the clue?" The little ones looked at each other, then their eyes lit up as they said in unison, "Miracle Healer Academy." The Miracle Healer Academy was no stranger to every martial artists in the Miluo continent. It was located at the junction of Tiangang Kingdom and Songming Kingdom, surrounded by mountains and green water, forming a city of its own called Miracle Healer City. Miracle Healer did not belong to any country. No one had jurisdiction over it and no one dared to. But this was different from the Shura City, which was also under no jurisdiction. The Shura City was an underworld full of criminals, while the Miracle Healer City was a prosperous place where geniuses and high-level doctors gathered. It was also known as the most desirable sacred place in the entire Miluo continent. Compared with Miracle Healer City, Miracle Healer Academy was a paradise that everyone dreamed of entering. However, it was almost impossible for 90% of the physicians and martial artists of the Miluo continent to enter the Miracle Healer Academy. Although Miracle Healer Academy organized an admissions assessment every year, there were few people who could stand out in that abnormally difficult admissions assessment. Even that ratio was less than 1 in 10 million. As an academy completely independent of all families and influences, Miracle Healer Academy had all its codes of conduct very fair and just, and it was respected and admired by everyone. No matter how powerful one was, even the sons and daughters of the president of the Doctors Association, if he wasn't capable, he would never be selected. Moreover, although it was called Miracle Healer Academy, it recruits not only doctors, but also talented martial artists and some individuals with special talents. In short, as long as everyone was recommended, they had the opportunity to enter Miracle Healer Academy. Once they were selected into the Miracle Healer Academy, no matter what kind of background they was originally from, even the lowest peasant could rise to the top. As for the family of the students in Miracle Healer Academy, they could obtain supreme glory. Even more than 90% of the 8th-rank doctors and Grandmaster pill refiners of the Miluo continent were from the Miracle Healer Academy, including those elders from the Doctors Association. Chapter 1050, Might as well rob? There was a legend in Miracle Healer Academy that every 10 years, a very small number of excellent students would be sent to the Siam continent to study. Once they had outstanding results of learning and were valued by Siam continent's sects or forces, they could stay in Siam continent exceptionally. Siam continent was a paradise far higher than Miluo continent. For the people of the Miluo continent, there was an out-of-reach existence like a dream. For most martial artists in Miluo continent, there was only one way to enter Siam continent. That was to advance to the soul-splitting stage, accept the Thunder Tribulation, and finally soar to the upper realm. However, was the Thunder Tribulation so easy to pass? Was soul-splitting stage so easy to reach? Was there a single soul-splitting stage martial artist for nearly 1,000 years? However, the Miracle Healer Academy had provided the people of Miluo continent with another way to ascend to the upper realm, that was, to become the well-deserved king of the Miracle Healer Academy. With this opportunity alone, people from Miluo continent rushed to apply for admission to Miracle Healer Academy. Even Heshi, who had always been calm, couldn't help sighing after hearing Qing Wan and Baihu's detailed description of the origin and power of Miracle Healer Academy. They soon came to the Miracle Healer City. But Heshi did not expect that entering the Miracle Healer City actually required a pass. Only doctors above 4th rank and pill refiner above quasi-master level could enter and exit Miracle Healer City freely. All others need to pay crystal stone to enter. 100 crystal stones per person per day? Hashi could not help but frown. Bai Hu even exclaimed, "They might as well rob." Qing Wan glared at Bai Hu before explaining to Hashi, "Because there are too many people who want to apply for Miracle Healer Academy or go to Miracle Healer City for treatment every year. If they don't set such rules and regulations, Miracle Healer City will definitely be overcrowded." Qing Wan was the new Zhu Ke, who was mainly responsible for support. Although she was not a high-ranked doctor like the previous Zhu Ke, she knew more about this aspect. Hashi nodded. As soon as she heard this rule, she even wanted to get a doctor's rank to save money. However, after understanding the promotion of doctor ranks, she realized that this was impossible. Because the first doctor rank assessment could only be awarded to 3rd-rank doctor at most, then the promotion of each rank had a time limit. She had to at least wait for a year. Although the fee was expensive, it was really nothing for Hashi, who had just won a huge sum of money. Hashi paid the crystal stones for a month for all of them at once. The city guards couldn't help look at them a few more times. After the few people left, the guards were still talking quietly. These people must have come to participate in the assessment of Miracle Healer Academy, right? Otherwise, they won't pay so many crystal stones. TSK, they don't even have a doctor rank, and the youngest one is only at the foundation establishment stage. If they come here to apply for the Miracle Healer Academy's entry assessment, isn't it self-defeating and a waste of crystal stones? Hey, who cares? We only need to have to collect the crystal stones. As soon as Hashi and others entered the door, they felt a strong spiritual power rushing toward them. Gu Lufeng looked at the 4 corners of the city and found that there was a shining light. He couldn't help but sigh. Miracle Healer City is really rich. In such a huge city, there is even a spirit gathering array. No wonder the entrance fee is so expensive. Chapter 1051. Guide. But now Miracle Healer City had set up the spirit gathering array in the whole city. It was conceivable that the crystal stones cost every day was so expensive. No wonder many people were eager for Miracle Healer City and Miracle Healer Academy. As soon as they entered the city, they saw a few boys and girls with plain clothes rush toward them excitedly. Several seniors. "Are you new to Miracle Healer City? You must need a guide, right? I have lived in Miracle Healer City for more than a year, so I'm very proficient in all the news here. Senior, I only need 500 crystal stones a day to take you for a tour in the Miracle Healer City, especially the Miracle Healer Academy. I have acquaintances there, and I promise to let you know the important matters of the entrance examination." The babbled voice kept coming in their ears. These boys and girls just watched as she came in with a large amount of crystal stone at the city gate, and they noticed their costumes and cultivation, a few gold core stage, so they must be huge customers. That was why they were particularly eager. Hashi glanced at them, then she looked at a young man with a refreshing face. The clothes on this boy were more worn than the others, and his face was full of tiredness. Hashi would notice him because the spiritual power fluctuations on his body were very soft and pure. Moreover, it was a very pure water attribute spiritual power. He had at least a dual spiritual root qualification. Judging from his spiritual power fluctuations, this person was very suitable to be a doctor. Hashi pointed and said lightly, "It's him." How could you choose Tong Bing? We are much better than him." "Yeah, he has only been here in Miracle Healer City for less than 3 months. How can he be compared to us?" Hashi's choice puzzled them, making them complain unwillingly. However, as soon as Hashi released her aura, they quickly shut up and ran away as if they were shocked. Only the shabby boy stood there nervously with a flushed face. He said after a long while, My name is Tong Bing, thank you senior for choosing me." Next, Tong Bing took Hashi and others around the Miracle Healer City. Miracle Healer City covered a large area, even larger than Yangon City and Yinjing City. And at this time, the streets were full of hustle and bustle, but the shops on both sides didn't mean to do business. The staffs and bosses were sitting on their seats, waiting for others to inquire about the price. In this miracle healer city, the most were medical halls. Almost 1 out of 10 people on the street was a doctor, which would be unimaginable if it was another city. But what made Heshi feel strange was that although there were many people in Miracle Healer City, they all come and go in a hurry. There was a strong sense of contradiction with this Miracle Healer City. She couldn't help but ask Tong Bing, "Are there so many people here every day?" Tong Bing shook his head and said, No, it's not. Only this month is special because in a few days it will be the selection and assessment of Miracle Healer Academy. Many people here are here to participate in the assessment. Usually, because of the expensive entrance fees, there are mostly doctors and high-rank martial artists around, and few ordinary people came in. Chapter 1052. Enchantment. He originally thought that these people paid the sky-high entrance fee to take the selection examination of Miracle Healer Academy, but he didn't expect that they didn't even know the selection examination. Qing Wan sighed with emotion. That's no wonder. Every time the Miracle Healer Academy is selected, almost all the martial artists that are expected to be selected from the whole mainland will come to participate in the registration. Son, it would be a coincidence that we were in time. Heshi smiled and did not speak. Tong Bing finally couldn't help but ask in a low voice, "Senior, are you not here to participate in the selection?" Heshi shook her head, "No." But after speaking again, she suddenly smiled slightly, "Not for the time being, but maybe it's not a bad thing to participate." She said very lightly in the last sentence, but Tong Bing still heard it. This young man, who was elegant and lofty that made him feel a little embarrassed, seemed younger than him, but the self-confidence in the words and the aura of the superior made Tong Bing feel that he was too far away from him. Tong Bing soon took Heshi and others to the location of Miracle Healer Academy. Even if Heshi was mentally prepared, she couldn't help being stunned when she saw the vast, endless buildings of the academy and the fluctuation of spiritual power that was almost visible to the naked eye. Moreover, seeing the roof of the college building and the misty mountain from the outside, one could imagine how wonderland inside that was carved and painted. This Miracle Healer City was very big, but the real city only occupied half of the Miracle Healer City, and the remaining half of the area was entirely owned by the Miracle Healer Academy. Heshi still wanted to go forward. Tong Bing quickly stopped her and said with a red face, "Senior, there is a very powerful barrier set up outside the Miracle Healer Academy. If there is no inscribed jade slip, ordinary people can't get in." As he said, he felt embarrassed. He lowered his head and said, "I'm sorry, Senior. I'm useless. Unlike the other guides, they have acquaintances in the school, and they can take you to the outside of the academy. I can't." Tong Bing had been very responsible all the way, and the most important thing was that he didn't speak too much along the way. Heshi was still very satisfied with his attitude as she hated strangers babbling in her ears the most. Hearing that, she was not disappointed and angry, but she said in a calm tone, "Enchantment? How powerful is it?" From this point of view, this Miracle Healer Academy was really not an ordinary wealthy. Ordinary sects, such as Yunlan sect, did not have the financial and material resources to open enchantments anytime and anywhere. The entire Miluo president and only the 4 major sects were willing to spend a huge amount of crystal stone to open the mountain guard array at all times. In Miracle Healer City, there was a spirit gathering array in the city, and the entire Miracle Healer Academy had also set up such a powerful enchantment, which clearly showed their wealth. Tong Bing showed a look of awe on his face, and he said in a low voice, "So far, no one has broken into the Miracle Healer Academy." Gu Lufeng frowned and interjected, "Is there a way to get that inscribed jade slip?" Tong Bing nodded. "As long as the martial artists work in the college, they will get a uniform inscribed jade slips. However, most of these inscribed jade slips can only enter specific places in the academy. Some can only move around outside. Only the teachers and formal students can really enter the academy." Chapter 1053. The easiest way. The Miracle Healer Academy was so big, there must be a lot of servants and students working in it. It was certainly not a problem to bribe someone to borrow the inscribed jade slip for a day. If it didn't work, they could just steal from someone. Tong Bing was taken aback, shaking his head like a rattle. Of course not, every inscribed jade slip is engraved with the only spiritual power mark, so only the owner can use it. If you use someone else's inscribed jade slip to enter the academy, you will soon be censed by the enchantment. You will definitely be punished if you are caught by the academy guards. It seemed that shortcuts really couldn't work. Hashi also just cast her divine sense to test this enchantment, and she found that it was indeed powerful. She stood a little farther and did not feel the presence of the barrier at all, but her divine sense disappeared into the enchantment without a trace. Presumably, with their cultivation, wanting to break through the barrier forcibly was simply impossible. Bai Hu couldn't help frowning and said, "Master, what should we do now? Should I ask Master to come over? He must have a way." "No need." Heshi shook her head. "No need to trouble Nangong Yu. Isn't there the easiest way?" Bai, who was taken aback, blurted out and asked, "What is the solution?" But as soon as Bai Hu asked, he reacted immediately, staring at Heshi with slightly widened eyes. Heshi smiled leisurely with shining phoenix eyes. "It is of course participating in the entrance examination of the Miracle Healer Academy." In fact, Heshi also remembered at this time. In Yangon City, Master Yuehua had mentioned to her about the Miracle Healer Academy and gave her a letter of recommendation. Although the Miracle Healer Academy did not restrict the identity and strength of the martial artists who signed up for the entrance examination, it also needed to verify the identity and origin of the martial artists. Therefore, every martial artist who participated in the entrance examination needed to obtain the recommendation letter of a doctor or high-rank martial artist. Heshi had already forgotten the letter from Master Yuehua, but now it just happened to come in handy. When Bai Hu and Gu Lufeng heard it, they looked at each other and nodded again and again. Qing Luan smiled even more. "Mister, with your strength, it is definitely easy to pass the assessment." Heshi didn't say anything yet, but Tong Bing's eyes widened in shock. "Easy to pass the assessment? Who is this young man? Are they dreaming or talking big?" No matter what Tong Bing thought, since Heshi decided to participate in the entrance examination, she didn't hesitate anymore. She quickly asked Gu Lufeng to take Master Yuehua's recommendation letter to help her register for the examination. Then, they went to find an inn to settle down first, but there wasn't any available room in the several inns they went to. No way. After all, this is the peak period for the examination of the Miracle Healer Academy. The entire Miracle Healer City was full of martial artists taking the examination, and the inn had long been in short supply. Bai Hu looked around and pointed to a luxuriously decorated building not far away and said, "This is also an inn, right? Why don't we go there to have a look?" Tong Bing hurriedly said nervously, "Then, there is Wangyue Pavilion. It is indeed an inn. But, it is also the most expensive place in Miracle Healer City. The fee for a room is 10,000 crystal stones per day." Chapter 1054. Number 1 Room. Generally, people who were not from a family of wealthy families or didn't have a doctor grade above 6th rank which could get a discount, they would not go to Wangyue Pavilion at all. Otherwise, wouldn't they bankrupt for just staying a few days? Unexpectedly, Bai Hu didn't care when he heard it. "Isn't it just 10,000 crystal stones? Let's go. Find a place to stay first." Tong Bing's little heart suddenly twitched, and he hurriedly followed up without saying anything. As soon as he arrived at the Wangyue Pavilion, Bai Hu couldn't help snapping his fingers. This Wangyue Pavilion was indeed the most expensive restaurant in Miracle Healer City. It was really luxurious. Not to mention the counter and pillars carved out of crystal stone, the manservants of the chapel outside the door were martial artists above the foundation establishment stage. And everyone who enters and exits the Wangyue Pavilion was rich or noble, and many people had the jade pendants of 6th or 7th rank doctors. There were very few ordinary martial artists here. There were occasionally a few martial artists, which turned out to be at the peak of the gold core stage. There were even 1 or 2 nascent soul stage martial artists. If Heshi came in alone, she would probably be driven out by the staff immediately. After all, a martial artist, who looked no more than the foundation establishment stage and didn't have a doctor rank, wasn't qualified to work for Wang Yue Pavilion. Who would believe that she had the money to live? However, Bai Hu and Qing Wan both had the gold core stage cultivation base, and they both were chosen from the thousands of elites in King of Hell Mansion. Bai Hu had been with Nangong Yu for a long time, so he already had the demeanor of a superior cultivator. So seeing them coming in, the shopkeeper didn't dare to neglect, and he hurriedly stepped forward to greet. "Do you want to stay in our pavilion? Unfortunately, there is only the number 1 room left." Tong Bing's face twitched, and he leaned close to Heshi and said in a low voice, "Senior, the number 1 is the best room in Wang Yue Pavilion. The daily price is 20,000 crystal stones." Tong Bing stared at Heshi with a face full of struggle. The subtext was, "If you can't afford it, let's run quickly." Heshi smiled slightly without speaking. Bai Hu had already made a decision indifferently. "I want 2 number 1 rooms. We are not sure how many days are we going to stay, so these will be used as advance deposits." The shopkeeper of Wang Yue Pavilion saw the storage bag that Bai Hu had thrown out and peeked into it. When he raised his head again, his face was full of respect and enthusiasm. His face was even wrinkled with a smile. Although Wang Yue Pavilion had never lacked martial artists with generous payments, people like them who threw 1,000,000 crystal stones in one goal were really very rare. For residents like this, they either had a huge force or an unfathomable strength, so shopkeepers dared not to offend them. After the check-in procedure was completed, there was a runner who brought them to their rooms. In fact, it was still early at this time, so Heshi planned to go shopping in Miracle Healer City again to learn about prices and various forces here. After all, she might stay in Miracle Healer City for a long time. Therefore, they asked Tong Bing to wait here for a while, then went to the room to get familiar with the environment. However, when Heshi and the others came out, they unexpectedly didn't see Tong Bing in the lobby. Bai Hu frowned and said, "Does this little guy greedy run away with our crystal stones?" Qing Wan shook her head and said, "Tong Bing looks quite honest. He doesn't seem like such a person." Chapter 1055. Not worth it. Heshi, Bai Hu and Qing Wan glanced at each other, and they were about to check it out, but the shopkeeper stepped forward and stopped in front of them. Meeting Heshi's gaze, the shopkeeper's gaze flickered, but he lowered his voice and said with sincere concern, "Mister, you come from outside, right? Don't blame me for talking too much. I advise you not to offend someone you can't afford to offend for just a lowly person. It's not worth it." Heshi raised his eyebrows without saying anything, then she walked out of the Wang Yue Pavilion, bypassing the shopkeeper. As soon as she stepped out of the door, she heard a loud bang not far away. A small figure fell on the steps hard and groaned in pain. Both Heshi and Bai Hu showed surprised expressions. It turned out to be Tong Bing. At this time, his tattered clothes were even stained with mud, his face was bruised, and blood came out from his mouth. He looked really miserable. In front of Tong Bing, a young man in luxury clothes laughed at Tong Bing's miserable appearance. Tong Bing endured the pain, struggling to get up from the steps, but the young man stepped on his chest. Immediately afterward, he stepped on him violently, making Tong Bing's face turn pale for a while. Then he laughed wildly. "I have been looking for you for so long, but I didn't expect to meet you here. Why, you want to participate in the selection assessment of the Miracle Healer Academy? Ha, you are really ignorant. Why don't you look into the mirror? Even you have the delusion of getting into the Miracle Healer Academy? Stop dreaming." As soon as the young man finished speaking, everyone behind him burst into laughter. The people coming and going on the street also stopped and looked at the excitement here. Some sympathized, some disdained, and some hurriedly walked away to avoid getting into trouble when they saw Tong Bing's miserable look. But no one would kindly stand up for Tong Bing because that young man looked like someone who shouldn't be offended easily. Tong Bing's painful body trembled slightly, but he still gritted his teeth stubbornly. Miracle Healer Academy stipulates that anyone can participate in the assessment as long as they have a recommendation letter. Of course I can too. Huh, a recommendation letter? Just your useless master who died last year without a complete corpse? A second-rank doctor's recommendation letter? Don't you feel ashamed to show it? The young man laughed again, and his voice was full of contempt and disdain. Tong Bing pushed away the feet that the young man and said angrily, "You're not allowed to say that to my master. My master is not useless. My master is not dead. He just disappeared. Pooey! You dare to resist me!" The young man was furious after being pushed away by Tong Bing. He condensed spiritual power on his feet and kicked Tong Bing ruthlessly. Tong Bing spat out a mouthful of blood. His pale face looked even more dreadful. The young man was at the meridian stage, and Tong Bing was just at the foundation establishment stage. Tong Bing had no resistance at all. The young man kicked him to the ground again. When he met Tong Bing's resentful eyes, he suddenly became more angry. He pointed at Tong Bing's forehead and sneered, "Huh, you dare to glare at me? Who are you dare to glare at me? I will ruin your eyes right now." As he said, the flying sword pierced toward Tong Bing's eye. The onlookers turned their heads unbearably and did not dare to watch this scene. Chapter 1056, Kowtow and Apologize, Clang Dash. That was the sound of the flying sword falling to the ground. The expected pain did not come. Tong Bing opened his eyes and saw that the young man in luxury clothes had stepped away from him, staring fiercely at the surrounding crowd. Who fucking dare to disturb my business? Stand out now." Bai Hu walked down the steps of the Wangyue Pavilion step by step, holding his chest with both hands. He said with a half smile, "Your grandpa me." The young man was startled. Bai Hu's face was very strange to him, so he didn't even know who he was. Soon a subordinate stood up and whispered a few words in the young man's ear. The young man quickly showed a clear look on his face. He said with disdain, "So it's you guys. You guys are really blind to find this animal to be your guide. Forget it, I'm in a good mood today, so I can forgive you guys. Get out of here now." Bai Hu sneered, "Who are you to judge which guide we can hire? You are really tired of living." The young man raised his eyebrows and stared at Bai Hu and the others fiercely. Seeing that Bai Hu's cultivation level was not low, his servant hurriedly stepped forward, raised his chin and sneered, "Hee, are you guys new here? I think you still don't know who our young master is, right?" "Oh." Bai Hu picked his ear and said nonchalantly, "Who is your young master? Tell me. Don't be scared to death." The servant smiled at the young man with a flattering face before looking up and said, "This is our young master Hu Minghui. Our young master's father is the butler of the Miracle Healer Academy. You guys must be here to participate in the selection examination of the Miracle Healer Academy, right? I can tell you that if you offend our young master, you don't even think about participating in the selection examination of the Miracle Healer Academy." Bai Hu rolled his eyes secretly. Just a butler? With this kind of position, he can only get into the peripheral of the academy. He can't even get into the inner courtyard. They are actually so arrogant. TSK, this is really annoying. Seeing that Bai Hu hadn't spoken for a long time, the young man thought he was afraid. He smiled proudly. "Why? Are you afraid now? Based on the fact that you guys don't know anything, I won't make it difficult for you. Just kowtow and apologize to me, otherwise..." Bai Hu seemed to come back to his senses, and he slowly said, "Oh, kowtow and apologize." The young man thought that Bai Hu was about to kneel to him. He said smugly, "This is just a little lesson for you so that you guys won't get close to that lowly person and don't offend the one you shouldn't." Before he finished speaking, the young man suddenly felt his knees numb, then he made an ouch sound and knelt down. Bai Hu touched his chin and smiled with satisfaction. Yes, really obedient. You just kowtowed to apologize right away. Since you are so sensible, I won't trouble you anymore. You can go." There were bursts of pain in his knees. The young man was completely astounded. He only managed to get up from the ground after a long while. His entire face was distorted because of anger. His lips opened and closed tremblingly. He sternly said after a while, What are you doing in a daze? Go and beat him up." Chapter 1057. I don't care, but the highest level of cultivation among these people was only at the meridian stage. How could they be Bai Hu's opponent? They were all defeated in just a few moves. The servant quickly helped his bruised young master to get up, then he shouted at Bai Hu, "You're done, you don't even know who you have offended. You just wait and see." After speaking, seeing Bai Hu looked over with a sneer, he suddenly felt pain in his chest. How could he say more? He quickly left with his young master. Bai Hu was satisfied beating them up this time, but the onlookers looked at him as if they were looking at a fool. Some martial artists were full of sympathy. Wangyue Pavilion's shopkeeper even sighed and said to Heshi, "Mr. Shi, you guys are getting into big trouble this time. If you are here to participate in the admission selection of Miracle Healer Academy, I advise you to not participate." Heshi raised her eyebrows and said, "Why?" The shopkeeper shook his head and said, "Butler who is the father of Hu Minghui, who happens to be responsible for registration and examination room arrangements this time. Butler who is now in his 80s, and he finally has this son, so he pampers him very much. You hit Hu Minghui this time, he will definitely not let you go easily. If you participate in the selection, he will not only make it difficult for you, but he will also target you. You may not be able to get out of Miracle Healer City by that time. It's better to run away now." Bai Hu, who had just walked back, curled his lips and said nonchalantly, "Che, isn't it just a butler? I don't care." The shopkeeper shook his head and didn't say much when he saw that they didn't know what trouble they were in now. Heshi and others didn't take this matter seriously at all. According to what Qing Luan said, Miracle Healer Academy's reputation had always been fair. They would never bully candidates just because of a butler. At most, the butler would only make things difficult for Heshi using his position. Heshi wouldn't pay attention to this kind of trick at all. Tong Bing also got up from the ground at this time. He walked in front of Heshi with flushed eyes and said hoarsely, "Sorry, senior, I'm the one who put you into trouble." Heshi didn't say much. She just handed him a bottle of medicinal pills and crystal stones. "This is your reward today." Tong Bing was taken aback, and he shook his head again and again. "You have paid me in the morning, and I am only your tour guide for half a day. I even caused you so much trouble." Bai Hu frowned and said impatiently, "Just take it, why are you talking so much? Aren't you going to participate in the selection examination of the Miracle Healer Academy? The examination is only 2 days later, so you should go back and take a rest. How do you take the examination like this?" After speaking, the few people didn't bother Tong Bing and left. They were already familiar with the Miracle Healer City, so they could still walk around by themselves without a guide. Tong Bing stood on the spot, holding the crystal stones and medicinal pills in his hands and staring blankly at the direction where Heshi and others left. He only murmured after a while, "Thank you. This is the first time in my life I have received goodwill from the outside world. I will certainly repay it if I have the opportunity in the future." 2 days passed in a blink of an eye, and soon it was time for the selection examination of the Miracle Healer Academy. The first day had no test. It was mainly for the formal registration of the martial artists participating in the examination. They are tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.